Well, welcome everybody to my workshop on intuition. This is my first kind of go at delivering this information to anybody, so I'm pretty excited for it. I hope that you all find it useful or at least interesting. So just to talk a little bit about myself, my name is Davikar, or Devin is my given name, and I joined the temple about 6 months ago in the summer, I believe, around then. And I have uh, been practicing Jediism in my own life for quite some time. I really believe in the ways of the Jedi, and I think that the concept of the Jedi actually help us unlock natural intuition. So by following the path, you may actually begin to unlock these gifts naturally. I, as a child, did have some, occurrences that my mother pointed out to me when I was younger around intuition and such. And since then, I've been kind of aware of such. Throughout my my 20s, at least, I kind of suppressed that feeling and those parts of myself because it kind of scared me, to be honest. I saw things that I didn't like. So, but with as we know, with the world and the universe, with all dark things, there are light things, and there's balance. So, in order to accept all parts of yourself, it takes both of those things. So you kind of have to give yourself some time. So I'm always impressed to see anybody on the Jedi path because I think it's a very difficult place to be. So, on that note, we talk about what I just kind of mentioned. I have this quote from PhD Diana Divcha. Babies come into the world with an intact spiritual attunement that is designed by nature to prepare them for future developmental challenges. They are naturally connected to the transcendent, to nature, ritual, symbolism, dreams, empathy, and mystical experiences. I'm going to take a pause and actually open a short discussion if anyone wants to add in. Does this resonate with anybody from their childhood? Do they feel like they can recognize this, and maybe in some other children they've seen where babies or young children seem to be closer to spiritual spirit, I suppose. If anyone has anything they want to share, you can raise your hand. If not, we will move on. Okay. I found this quote actually today, and I threw it in because I really liked it. And it's an Albert Einstein quote, so that's always a good one. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Does this resonate with anybody? Do we feel like our society has suppressed our gifts of intuition or spirituality? Okay, we'll leave that for now.
We've got one hand.
Oh, I didn't see. Oh, my thing is, you know what? I see that. I'm sorry, Daniel. I missed you. Go ahead. Feel free to interrupt me if I miss you again.
Was I supposed to talk now? I to finish chewing my pretzel. So
take your time.
So the Einstein quote.
Oh yeah, let's take it back for a sec, for sure.
Maybe he actually said it, maybe he didn't, but that particular quote itself is interesting to me personally because I think he's right that there's a certain kind of analysis of the world that is sort of proffered as the preferred analysis of the world. And because of that, people end up missing a lot of stuff. And that doesn't mean everything there's a place for that kind of analysis, but that kind of analysis isn't the only place. So that's the sort of stuff that I think about when I see that quote. But I'll go back to my pretzels now. So
I think it's interesting to no, thank you for your input. I think it's really interesting as well, whether the quote comes from him or not. The thought of it, especially if that did come from him from back in that time, if he was already feeling it then, imagine how we're feeling today, right? Like with all the technology and things that have kind of come from his creations and other great minds, for sure. Okay, so then we move on to this quote. Or not, sorry, not this quote, this piece of information that I wrote down. Intuition is a natural and inherent aspect of human consciousness, and it can manifest in various ways, such as sudden realization, a strong feeling, or an unexplained knowing. While some may view intuition as a form of psychic perception, it differs from specific psychic abilities like telepathy or clairvoyance in its more general and encompassing nature. So when we talk about intuition, we're not necessarily talking about psychic abilities, visions of the future, or abilities to communicate between people's minds, or even the ability to, see other places. Intuition is, the way I see it anyway, the beginning of that. It's the feeling, the gut feeling, right? The knowing without knowing. Does everyone kind of agree with that? Does that make sense? We got someone on this. Okay. Thumbs up. Yeah, we can give a thumbs up. I like that. If you agree, thumbs up work. Okay. So intuition is the ability to acquire knowledge. Now we're looking at a definition. Without recourse to conscious reasoning or needing an explanation. Different fields use the word intuition in very different ways, including, but not limited to, direct access to unconscious knowledge, unconscious cognition, gut feelings, inner sensing, inner insight, to unconscious pattern recognition, and the ability to understand something instinctively without any need for conscious reasoning. Intuitive knowledge tends to be approximate. Okay, so I grabbed this from Wikipedia, as you can see. So what I'd like to kind of put out there right away off the bat, because this is a really important part of my workshop, is that it's okay to be wrong. And in fact, you will be wrong many, many times. By being wrong, that is actually how you can learn how to be right, or how to know the right feelings. So you have to kind of become aware of the feelings inside of yourself to become good at it. And even still, sometimes the universe and the force can be very unpredictable and things may change the outcome that could be set. Especially, I would say on this note, I don't have this necessarily in my mind, but if somebody is aware of what you believe the outcome to be, it is definitely easier to change that potential outcome. Okay, so now we have empathy. Empathy is the ability to read other people's emotions without them being told to us. It is the superpower of understanding other people's thoughts and feelings. But this gift comes from consequences. Being a psychic empath means having a tendency to carry other people's emotional baggage. I have known empaths in my life, or people who profess to be empaths, that become very overwhelmed in large spaces with people because they are taking everybody's baggage on top of them there, and they're feeling all of this stuff at once. So a lot of empaths tend to want to stay inside and become introverted. Does anyone here feel that way in crowds where you feel like it's just too much? I feel everybody's stuff going on. You can just raise your hand even if you've ever felt that way, because some people I know do. Even I have been in crowds before and felt, okay, this is just too much for me. Today's not the day. I feel overwhelmed. I'm going home. I never really thought of myself as an empath per se. I do believe we all have that ability to become empathetic though. I like it. Okay, so now I've grabbed this teaching from our doctrine because I felt it was very important and integral to what we're talking about here. The Jedi practice living in universal compassion, understanding the phenomena of our environment, we cultivate a particular sensitivity to when feelings or of fear, anger, hatred, and aggression germinate within us. These emotions are among our limitations as incarnated organic beings. We bring to these feelings of hope, pardon, and love in equal measure to bring us back into balance with the movement of the force. So here we already say that we're kind of becoming, as Jedi, we make it a point to understand ourselves, our fears, our emotions, and we understand that that's part of who we are and our part of our limitations, and that sometimes they can be uh, just as much as a hinder as they can be a help to us. So why is that? Where are we leading it? Well, this next teaching here, teaching 13, says the Jedi cultivate empathy with others. Empathy, here we go. What we were just talking about a minute ago. Empathy, if we look at the definition, is the ability to feel other people's emotions without them telling us what they are. Maintaining a keen sensitivity to when the feelings of fear, anger, hatred, and aggression move within us. We empathetically and compassionately comprehend how these feelings also arise in others. Those whom we perceive as adversaries also share these limitations. With this understanding, we respond to imbalance so as to return harmony to the flow of interactions. Okay, so right in our teaching, we have that Jedi are meant to become empaths, basically. We're meant to really understand what people are feeling and become aware of that. Without them having to tell us, we're supposed to really be paying attention to the signs, the cues, and maybe the feelings within ourselves that we get when we're around them. So, to be a Jedi is to be a natural empath, but it doesn't have to end there. There are many things that opening our connection with the force can do for us. It allows us just to become more aware of our surroundings. Even there's so many things, and I think as some of us has mentioned, us being together, it gives us a chance to learn from each other, and the human experience is only limited by time, so there's only so much one can do. And if you spend your time in the kitchen, for example, or swimming, you're not doing something else. So someone else's experience can give to you as well, and that's what people read, and they talk to each other. The force is strong in this one. I grabbed this because I really believe that it's true. We all, especially as Jedi who recognize our connection to the force, have ability to become exponentially stronger um, than other people who aren't, because it opens doors that people are not willing to walk through. They're tough. These are tough doors. Okay, so now we have the code, and I have this up here in specific notion to discussing uh, our connection to insight. Okay, not necessarily intuition, but insight. Insight, as at least as are looked at in certain practices, can be blocked by illusion or the idea of not understanding, how things are connected. And as Jedi, we really focus on the interconnectedness of things. So in our code, I would argue that it goes without saying that it directly points to the outline of illusion, you know, being right in our face. There is no emotion, there is peace. So it's saying that they are essentially one, you know, together they work in tandem. Does that make sense? Does that kind of, that, I know it's a little bit of an outlook on it that I'm not sure everyone would agree with, but awesome. We got a thumbs up, so we'll stick with that one. I like it. Okay, so I know we're getting tired. We got a lot of definitions going on here. I'm sorry. But I really believe that it's important that we understand what we're talking about before we try to move forward. Relating to or denoting faculties or phenomena that are apparently inexplicable by natural laws, especially involving telepathy or clairvoyance, is known as, psychic, the ability to be psychic. So we don't see the word intuition in there necessarily, right? We see relating to the soul or mind, a person considered or claiming to have psychic powers or a medium. So that's not necessarily where we're starting. Okay. So we get to take a little bit of a break from all the gabbing here, and we're going to do a very basic initial kind of game or test for yourself. So you don't need to necessarily let me know what your outcome is, but if you'd like to share at the end, that's also okay. I have written here that when it comes to trusting your gut, you have to trust your feelings and understand them. And I really do believe that. So you have to let go of the attachment to being right. Okay. So this isn't necessarily about getting the answer right at all. When you are attempting to find the right answer with yourself, you need to really focus on letting go of your own emotions. And one of those emotions is the attachment to being correct. So by being in the moment and letting go of that and just focusing on what comes rather than what you expect to come, if that makes sense, it allows the gut instinct to kind of take over. So don't worry about the outcome, focus on the moment. And it's okay to be wrong. Like I said, as we move through this, and as you test yourself and as you learn to improve your intuition, you will only get better. But there are a lot of steps to get there. And from all failure comes growth. Keep moving forward. I stole that from Meet the Robinsons, which is a Disney movie, I believe, and I really like that line because it means a lot. It really says that you can't really improve if you stay where you're at. So it's okay to fail, but if you keep getting up and trying and trying and trying, eventually you're going to get it. No one wakes up and is perfect at everything right away. We know there's people who are naturally gifted, and we see that, but that's not that's not everybody, and not everyone gets that luck, if you would. And I also believe that when it comes to intuition, that some people are gifted. Some people just naturally have the ability to know what's going on inside and feel that. So there's different levels there as well. So allow whatever is going to come to come. Okay. So we have 4 numbers. This is very simple. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. All I want you to do is simply relax, let go of the feeling of being right, and focus on whatever comes to you. I'll give you a minute or so just to relax and feel what the next slide will have on it. Okay, take your time. And a lot of the time, I'll say this before we move to the next slide, your initial instinct tends to be correct. And a lot of the time we move past that initial instinct. So I just want to put that out there. We kind of second guess ourselves a lot. I do it all of the time. Okay, with that in mind, if anyone has if there's no objections, I'm going to move to the next slide and reveal the number that is the mystery number. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, here we go. Okay, the number 3. Show of hands if anyone got the number 3. Perfect. That's great. If you didn't, that's okay. Like I said, if you don't want to share, that's also fine. I'm just curious. So we had a couple show of hands, and now I have where did it feel the number 2? Don't worry about that at the bottom. It should say where do you feel the number 3? Sorry. So where did you feel the number 3 within yourselves for those who did get the number? Does anyone want to share? Did they have a feeling? Did it appear in themselves, visual in their mind or a feeling? And what did it feel like? If anyone wants to share. Okay. Perfect. So no one's gonna reveal. We got Peter. Go ahead, Peter.
Can I say something here?
I was gonna say,
you said don't worry about where did you feel the number 2 at the bottom, but strangely enough, like I felt 2. Like as soon as you popped up the 3 numbers or the 4 numbers there, I was like number 2. Like it was in my head, number 2. And then you like take your time and think about it, and I'm like, okay, I'm just like, okay, I'm sticking with number 2. And then you come
you're
back
not
with,
wrong. It's on the slide, right? I will give you that, and truthfully, I would accept that as an answer. Did anyone else have the number 2? Or did anyone move back and forth between 2 and 3 even? Because that's
what I did.
Awesome. Yeah.
I initially really quickly felt 2, and then like you said, take a minute, think about it. So that's what I did. It was like it's probably 3, but then you were like,
well, it's a trick question, so I love it.
Yeah, you're like your initial gut, and I do that all the time. Like even
I wanted to put a trick
life
question,
on
and this was
all the time. Yeah,
this was not on purpose, but I wanted to put one in. But this is actually great because what it shows us is that we don't know necessarily, we can't expect what the outcome will be. And in this case, there were 2 numbers. So either of those numbers could have been acceptable for sure. That's a difficult one. So,
and your question here, were you right? If not, what can you learn from this experience?
Yep.
And I think it's challenging with numbers to gain anything from the experience. But at the same time, you've got this number 3, and then where did you feel number 2? And I almost felt like that was intentional. Where did you feel the number 2 versus where did you feel the number 3 there? Because that's what I felt was number 2. So I'm like, wait, is this a trick? What's going on here?
So the Force works in mysterious ways, and truthfully, I believe that everything happens without coincidence. That's how I feel. So this was meant to happen, and I believe that this is meant to open a lot of discussion, and it's a great discussion to have. It truthfully it is because, like I said, as you I know you said you're not sure what can we learn from the experience. It's just numbers. That's why you're here, because as we move through this workshop, I hope to show you that you can kind of you can learn from each time you get it wrong and right. So what I would say is, what were your feelings when you got it wrong, or when you got it right? How did it make you feel? And also the numbers that were in your mind previous, what were your thoughts and emotions directing you to those numbers? I know that seems so obscure, but when you're really mindful of your thoughts and your emotions, you can really pay attention. Okay, I'm thinking in my mind, I want a hot dog. Really am I thinking in my mind, this and that? And those thoughts and emotions actually pull you away from the correct answer.
I feel like I'm a bit of a outlier because my initial thought when you put the numbers on the screen was 4. But then I read the instructions and it said between 1 and 4. So it should either be 2 or 3. Well, maybe I should change my answer to 3. I said, no, I'm going to go with my gut. I know it doesn't follow the instructions, but my gut said number 4.
Me too.
I love it. I absolutely love it. it's okay to, like I said, it's okay for that not to be the number. Um, how do I put this? Whatever. How do I put this? Yeah. That means that there's something internally that was conflicting there, truthfully. And you will learn to get past those things. Um, and like I said, you can't be right every time. It's not going to work like that. One thing I have noticed is that when you're on the ball, if you would, and you're actually really flowing with that, like in the force, if you would, and you're in the intuitive state, you tend to get them right. Like if you're really getting it right, and then once you get that feeling of getting it right, you know what you're looking for. So as you're looking through the numbers in your gut, if you would, you'll start to feel the numbers. Okay, no, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right, but I know that for me anyway, there's in a day there's a lot that happens. So if I'm in any kind of state, it's really difficult for me to really be on the ball with that stuff. I have to really clear my mind. And that's what we're going to be doing. So take a quick sip of water and then we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so we're going back to discussion again for a bit after the exercise. So, like I said kind of earlier in the discussion, I do believe that calming our internal conflict begins with understanding. So we do have to kind of push our understanding even more so we can start understanding our feelings internally. Okay. And like you said, what your gut instinct versus what your gut tell, maybe that gut feeling was based on fear somewhere inside. We don't know. So intuition, the ability to understand or know something instinctively without the need for conscious reasoning. Intuition often involves a deep inner sense or gut feeling about the situation, decision, or piece of information. So, for an example, perhaps your gut feelings were telling you, 4, because you knew that there wasn't just one number on the slide. Actually, at the top, there was a 1, said group uppersize 1, and there was a 3, and there was the 2, right? So, there were actually 3 numbers. So, maybe your gut instinct was saying, this is a trick. So, I'll just choose 4. And as you can move, and understand those feelings, you can get better at things. So
Yeah, that's exactly what it was for me. Just
there you go, right?
validating your thought process there.
Thank you. And I honestly believe that that's a really possible outcome, especially when it comes to instinct, because gut instinct doesn't give you much to go on. There's no picture. You're not looking at it being like, okay, I see a mountain, so it must be a mountain, or I see a 4, it must be a 4. Your feelings are saying, no, 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 I'll go this way, and that's natural. So I agree that in that sense, there was a lot of ways we could have went on that slide, for sure. Telepathy, the ability to transmit thoughts, feelings, or information directly from one mind to the other. So we talked a little about that earlier. Clairvoyance, the ability to gain information about an object, location, or event beyond the scope of natural human perception. It often involves seeing images or visions. So clairvoyance, intuition. So the way I see clairvoyance to intuition is clairvoyance is a little bit of an upgrade. You're now getting a clear picture of what you need to see, and it's much easier to distinguish what you're looking for. Precognition, the ability to perceive or predict events that will happen in the future before they occur, often through intuitive insights or dreams. So that's now we're seeing a little bit of more of the vision, but it's we're seeing the future, right? We're getting being able to predict further future events. Empathy, we kind of talked about that earlier, of course, the ability to sense and understand the emotions, feelings, and energies of others. And empaths can intuitively pick up on the emotional states of those around them, as we know. Okay. Now we get into the little bit more of the specifics. Psychometry, the ability to receive information about a person or event by touching objects associated. Psychometry, sorry, I said that wrong. That happens when you're reading. The ability to receive information about a person or event by touching objects associated with them, such as jewelry or personal belongings. So that's a really interesting one. I know that I myself have actually experienced a little bit of that. So I didn't know the word until I did a little bit of this research, believe it or not. Clear audience, the ability to receive auditory information beyond normal human perception. This may involve hearing voices, sounds, or music from the spiritual or energetic realms. So clairaudience I really like because that one is you know, direct download, if you will, of information as well. You're able to hear the information. That I can't say that I necessarily have ever experienced. Clairalience, the ability to perceive smells or odors that are present, that are not present, sorry, in the physical environment. This form of clairvoyance is associated with receiving information through scent. That's a really cool one too. I can't say that I have experienced that myself either, but this was a learning experience for me when I researched some of these sub sections of clairvoyance. Clairgustance, the ability to taste substances without putting anything in the mouth. I actually think of there's a TikTok video out there or something that says, the guy comes on and says, I didn't know this, but you can look at anything and know what the texture feels like, what it's going to feel like in your mouth, and what it's going to taste like. And maybe that's some sort of natural ability for humans. I really like that anyway. Clairsentience, often considered a broader form of empathy. Clairsentience is the ability to sense and feel energy, emotions, or information from the environment or individuals. So that's kind of, as we know, like it says, they're a little bit more of an empath. So that's definitely on the Jedi path, the clairsentience, and that is kind of what we're looking to do here with the number game. Okay. So intuition senses go beyond what we see and hear, tapping into the subtle energies of the force to reveal hidden truths and guide us in ways our regular senses can't. What works for one person may not work for everyone. Allow yourself time. Our internal conflicts are powerful, and it can be difficult to see through the clouds at first. So I wrote this down because I think it's really really good information, and I really want people to take this in because I know I'm reiterating it. I believe anyone can learn to listen to the force, but it takes dedication, patience, and control. Okay. So now we have a little bit of a discussion break. What does intuition mean to you? Does anyone want to share an experience that they've had with intuition where it's helped them in their life? I'm not sure who that was.
This
Feel
is
free
Tabitha or Adelinda. So I love your class so far. It really goes along with my class, I feel like. One of the exercises that I work on with my DBT is I exercise where you write down a yes or no column. And it's an intuitional thing where you sit there and you ponder back on your life, where in your gut you had an intuitional yes or like an astounding one. Like you literally know that like was your intuition. For some people that's not easy. For some people it is. And so you put yes or no. For me, the one that I did, and then this is going to be silly, but to some people possibly, but for me, when I met Peter, my husband, we had already known each other for a while. We worked at the hospital together. He was married, I was in a relationship. This was years after when we started dating. He had left his wife, whatever. While I was pursuing him, I was also being courted by another dude. And this dude knew him and worked with him in security and would constantly tell me, you can't be with him because he's a narcissist and this, and this, and he's a bad person, right? And I would spend this time with him, and I'd get this gut feeling when this other guy would say this, like, no, it's not right, yo. And at a point in my life previously, I probably might have followed through with that because at that time that guy was more interested in me than Pete was. And with borderline, we kind of will steer more towards those kind of peoples. But at that time, he had also introduced me to the Jedi culture. And so I had a motto at that time where I had decided I was no longer going to allow what other people said about somebody to shape my views on them. And so I was like, no, I'm going to listen to my stomach that is telling me that Pete is not this, and we're gonna risk it. We're gonna go against what this guy says. And here we are 4 years later now, and he has not been the person that this individual and potentially maybe some other individuals like who would chime in, who would say these things. And so that is for me one of the times that I had an intuitional, like astounding, no, no, you are wrong. Like you are saying that he's a bad person, but no, that's not right. I'm going to follow my intuition that's telling me, no, you're not saying the right things. I'm not going to follow this. I'm going to go along with my gut feeling, which is he is a good person. And so that is kind of my experience and one of the exercises that I have used. There was obviously other times that I have had those, but that is just one that is prevalent in my head just because of doing my own class recently.
No, that's wonderful, that you shared that, and I think that that's a really good example of how trusting your gut leads you to the outcome that you hope to desire, rather than the one that was placed in front of you, or that fear instilled by fear into you, if you would, like this guy's going to do this to you, this is going to be horrible, but you thought, well, give them a chance. And I think that I personally believe this, that even if that person was like that previously, they have the ability to change. So whether or not that person had that view of them, it doesn't mean that that person moving into this relationship will be that same person. He could have been. So I mean, in a way, it's nice that you had the warning. I would say that, but I also don't like how strongly that person put it to you, because it's really trying to influence you, rather than saying, hey, here's some warning signs that I saw. Here's some examples. Make your own decision. They're kind of like, don't do it, don't do it. So to me, it's like, well, what's their real motive? Why did they really not want you to engage? So I am glad that you trusted your intuition. Carmen, you got your hand up. I think you're next.
Yeah, let me take that hand back down here. I had kind of the opposite situation. Several years back, I was in a relationship that was quite serious. We lived together, and I had decided that it was time for me to buy a new house. And I went through all the steps, finding a place and doing all the things. And so I found the perfect place and I started the process. And I had this gut instinct intuition for absolutely no reason whatsoever that the only mistake I made in all this was that this person that I had a relationship with would know where I lived, because I found the house while we were still in a relationship. Now, mind you, there was absolutely no reason for me to think that we were doing well, etc. I went ahead with the purchase. I went ahead with all the moving and everything. We moved together into the new place. We lived together in the old place. We moved into the new place. Down the road, very quickly, I would say, within half a year, I basically broke up with him, and the relationship went very seriously downhill rapidly. 3 protective orders later, huge situation, scary situation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's very interesting to reflect back that I had that thought at that time with no reason, but it was correct. And the last several years have been very transformative, in many ways. And I wouldn't change them for the world. I'm a much better and stronger person for it. But my first thought when you said that intuition, that thought, there was nobody that was telling me this, and it was rather random. But it was right.
Well, I love that. I love that, and I'm sorry that you had to go through it, but the way I look at things, and the way I see at least visions of the future, or predictions at least, is we're not necessarily meant to steer the outcome from what we saw. If anything, it's meant we see these, or we get these feelings, so we can be ready to go through it. And it's likely because there's something that you had to learn and grow from it, like you said, and you wouldn't trade it for the world. So even though it was a negative experience, you needed it to grow. And I think that sometimes the force will give us a little bit of a heads up And it seems like
I'm kind of laughing right now because if you think back to it, that was I have a bad feeling about this moment.
yeah. Yes. Yes,
So
and
funny.
and I've had many of those. I'm sure people, we get those feelings, and uh doesn't mean you get to avoid it, right? You just so yeah. But it's good that the Force gave you the heads up at least. I do believe that at least that way you could have been more prepared. So,
Yeah.
Peter, we got your hand up. I think you're the next one there, and then we'll move on. I think.
Yeah. I was going to talk about a situation that I had when I was living in Nevada, where I was just sitting at my computer playing a game or doing some work or something. I don't remember exactly what I was doing on my computer, but I just got this urge that I needed to go outside. And I kind of looked out the window and didn't really see anything going on. Like, why do I need to go outside? And I kind of blew it off at first, and then I got hit again. Like, no, you need to go outside. And so I got up and walked out the front door. And as I walked out the front door, I heard this duck just going nuts over by the kiddie pool that we had set up for him to swim in. And I was like, what the heck is going on? So I walk over there, and there's a little duckling that's stuck in the pool, and it cannot get up over the ledge. And it obviously had been trying for some time, and to the point that its head was into the water, and it was actually drowning from exhaustion. And so I scooped it up and pulled it out of the water and kind of massaged it back to life, really, because I mean it was pretty limp. Didn't really want to do anything, and after
did it have any feathers on it, or it was just totally
it had feathers on it. It was old enough to be in the pool swimming.
Yeah.
But the lip where it was in Nevada, the water evaporates pretty quickly there.
Yeah.
And so it was the lip was far enough from the top of the pool that it didn't have enough strength to get over that lip and out of the pool. So it was sitting there trying to fight it, get over the pool so I could get out with mom, and just wore itself out. So I massaged it back to life, really, and it started squawking and everything, and mom just sat there watching me as I'm working on it, trying to bring it back to, and I was able to do it, and it ran back over to mom, and everything was good after that. But I mean, I looked out the window and didn't see that event going on, but had that feeling like I need to be outside. I need to go out there. I need to go check things. There's something not right there. And sure enough, if I hadn't have been out there, we would have had a dead duckling in the pool rather than, a happier ending. So.
Well, I like the happy ending for sure. I believe that duck obviously still had stuff to do within the Force while it's here. So I love that you were the one to save it, and I love that the Force spoke to you and it gave you that gift, because I believe that is also a gift for yourself. Because when you get that feeling of doing something good, it fills you really wonderfully, and it's one of the greatest parts of being alive, I think. Anyway, so that was a wonderful story. Thanks for sharing. I've had similar ones living on a homestead. Trust me, I've had some crazy stuff outside, and I just get that feeling, and I run out there. I'm like, sure enough, it's happening. Actually, I'll share a brief one happened to me. It was on Christmas, right before Christmas. We had 2 turkeys left, and so we processed the one turkey, had it all in the fridge. It was ready to go, and I had one out there, and had this feeling internally where I wanted to keep this turkey, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll get a tom and I'll breed them and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I know it's not a good idea, and all these things are going through my mind because I love animals and I just want to keep it. And I'm like, whatever, even though it's food. So anyway, I kept thinking this to myself, and the Force obviously had other uh, ideas. So I went outside the day after processing the turkey. So it was Christmas Eve anyway. Went outside, had this gut instinct of I should go check the chicken coop. I don't know why. And sure enough, the turkey was dead. It was just laying there dead. It had just died. It was like fresh, warm, ready to be processed. And so the life was valued. It was, saved. We got to save the turkey. But had I not had that feeling to go out there and check the coop and just sit here and do my normal thing or whatever I was doing that day, it would have been lost. It would have been a waste of the life. So I love that. So there's a little bit of a sad ending, but it's also, circle of life and part of the force. And had I not done that, like I said, it would have been a much sadder, in my opinion. Okay. So can we find commonalities with each other? So, whether we have these, different ways of feeling intuition, can we find things in common, even though we had different experiences, like we mentioned, and different emotions? Well, I think we can. And one of the this is from my previous course. I grabbed this slide. Actually, it's a copy and paste right out of it. And the reason is because this is what makes us up internally. We have our intellect, communication, intuition, emotions, action, energy, stability, security, all that stuff that we need. In the form of the elements here, we have them displayed as air, water, fire, and earth. And inside of us, we are all made up of the elements, at the very core, atoms and so on and so forth. Different, carbon, all these elemental makeups. So inside of us, we have the actual physical elements, but also we have representation of them within ourselves, within our invisible parts of ourselves. So air symbolizes intellect, communication in the realm of thought. Water, the emotions, intuition, and the fluid aspects of life. Fire represents our actions, our energy, how we transform, and our driving force of change within the world. And earth, of course, represents stability, like I mentioned, security, grounding, and the physical realm itself. So our body and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so I grabbed this picture because the topic is intuition. And a lot of people, in different mythologies and such, relate to the moon as being, part, strong in intuition. And that's when magic comes out, is when the moon is out, for an example. So, but what did we talk about on the previous slide? Water governs our emotions, intuition, and the fluid aspects of life. And we see the moon affecting the water. So the moon has great effects over water, as we know, the tides of the earth. But it also has the ability to push and pull within ourselves. I truly believe that when the moon is out or at nighttime, your intuition can be much stronger because your energy of water is basically on overdrive. On the next slide, we have a representation of our chakras. This is depicted. Some people may be familiar with these by energy orbs within our bodies that govern different pieces of what we just talked about. There's emotions, internal conflicts, and energies. So we have the root chakra at the bottom, which governs earth, okay, and it's red. We have the orange sacral chakra right above it, which governs water, and it is orange. Like I said, it deals with all sorts of things, as you can see on the slide: creativity, sexuality, power, control, money, relationships. Solar plexus is your self-esteem, gut, and instinct. Excuse me. Your heart, love, forgiveness, does you good, compassion. Throat, self-expression, choice, will, follow your dreams, faith, trusting life. And then we have the third eye, of course, in your crown. The third eye, of course, is for psychic abilities, like we've been mentioning, and your crown is for directly connecting to the force and kind of connecting to all that is. And we see live in the present moment. And a lot of the time we talk about, as Jedi, about living in the present moment. And truthfully, in this spiritual practice, or when we talk about chakras, living in the present moment is the direct connection to the force or the universe and higher consciousness. So they're kind of one of the same. So now when we talked about feeling the numbers within our bodies, okay, we have all of these colors here. And I believe that within ourselves, we can actually feel these energies and we can start feeling answers within these energies. So before we, as we wrap up, I guess this part of the discussion and move into the meditation, I would just open the floor to anybody that that wants to talk about chakras or our emotions, thoughts past in regards to the direct energies inside of our bodies. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to bring up about that, or any, before we move forward? Because we are going to kind of talk about those throughout the meditation. Okay, perfect. So at this point, I would say we'll take a break, and I'd say thank you for joining me up to this point, and I hope that you've enjoyed the first part of the exercise, which is the presentation.